Let's move on to our talk today. Please welcome Rev Tim Peterson speaking I Had It All the Time.
Good morning. I wish I could see you here today. It's coming. Have faith. In Star Wars, Yoda said, "Not this crude leather. Luminous beings are we." Luminous beings are we. Now, I know that Yoda wasn't real, and I know that Yoda was just one of George Lucas's imaginings, but it's a pretty nice imagining. Imagine a voice in your head telling you all the time that you're a luminous being, that you could do anything, you could create anything, you could have anything, you could do anything. That'd be pretty nice. I was thinking last night about the voices that I've had in my head most of my life, and they haven't been the ones that said you are a luminous being. They've said kind of the exact opposite for the longest time. And I think that the person that told me that I wasn't a luminous being, or wasn't as much as I thought I could possibly be, was me. It's I kept putting an idea in mind that I wasn't this luminous being, or I wasn't this amazing person. And each one of us is amazing, and we have to understand that. We're the expression of love made manifest. We are the absolute top. And we hold ourselves in a type of almost contempt for a lot of times, or a lot of things that we do. That we're not good enough, or we're not funny enough, or we're not smart enough, or we're not enough. We're enough. Luminous beings are we. Now, some people may blame others for saying things like that to them that hold them in that spot. But if you're saying that, if you're thinking that, then you're in the perfect spot. Because that's exactly where you want to be. Unless you change your mind about what it is that you are, you're going to be that which you think you were. We are luminous beings. I wonder what would happen if you swore that you knew the secret of life and somebody put you on stage to tell us all about it. There was a television show called Totally Hidden Video. They did a prank exactly like that. A Federal Express driver was asked to take a package to a religious temple. Unknown to the driver, the pranksters had taken a picture of him and replicated it in a painted portrait depicting this young man dressed in full regalia of this fictitious sect. When the delivery man arrived, the disciples, which were all actors, took one look at him and started to buzz excitedly. They ushered him out of his front sanctuary and invited him into sit on this plush cushion of honor. They revealed to him that he was the chosen one. From hundreds of years ago, and to allay any doubts, they revealed this majestic portrait of the deliverer painted by that visionary centuries ago. Please, they begged him, give us words of wisdom. And the FedEx driver looked around and he felt a hush running over the assembly, and he sat on his pillow, his special pillow, and took a deep breath and said, "Life is like a river." And the disciples oohed and awed over this, hanging on his very utterance. Each was a sacred word. The sage went on, "Sometimes life flows easily, and sometimes you encounter rocks and rapids. But if you hang in there and have a little faith, you will arrive at the oceans of your dreams." The actors swooned in ecstasy and oohs and ahs, and then the FedEx driver said, "Well, I got to make some deliveries, so I got to go." And they bowed to him and showed him the way and made his way possible. Now, the interesting thing is they didn't do this just to one person. They did it to a number of them. And each one of them found profound words brought forth by some inner wisdom that we have innately within ourselves, but seldom bring forth. Emma Curtis Hopkins wrote, "We send you forth." She says, "You have been tried and found not wanting. You have been called and been answered by the fullness of power, by which the devout in all ages have prayed. You can heal the sick by the word of your speaking. You can cheer the fainting. When hearts are cast down, you shall say, there is lifting up. Be not afraid of the speech of people, nor seek for the world's favor. Speak the word boldly that is given you to utter. First time I read Emma Curtis Hopkins, I couldn't for the life of me understand what she was talking about. And in hindsight, I don't really believe that I wanted to know exactly at that time what she was saying. I don't know if it would have impacted me the same way that it impacted me 5 years ago when I was down at a ministerial course in Seattle. It hit me with such force that I had to bring back this whole idea of Emma. Because she taught a truth that was undeniable unless we deny it. And if we're denying it, we're not being true to ourselves. We're not being true to that essence of who we are, that God Spirit, that luminous being. We have thought for many years in generational thinking that we need to add something to us to make us better. We do not. There's a myth of self-improvement that needs to be stopped. There isn't one self-help book that is worth anything that doesn't state that the only thing to remember, that you need to remember, is who you really are. We are spiritual beings in a human experience. There is nothing you can do or add to your true self. You are luminous beings. Some of us have a hard time realizing that. It's not fixing ourselves that we need to do, because we've been striving to fix that which is not broken. And when we keep trying to fix that which is not broken, we tend to think that somehow we have become broken. It's time to return. Time to return to that essence of who we always were, and deep within us always knew. As a religious scientist, I learned how to do spiritual mind treatment. Prayer, affirmative prayer. By taking classes and learning closely, listening closely to others, because I didn't know how to pray. I knew how to get on my knees. I knew how to say all the words that I was told to say. I knew how to beg. I knew how to bargain. I knew how to say the right thing so the right people would think that I was doing the right thing. But I really didn't know how to pray. Jesus taught prayers to his disciples because they didn't know how to pray either. We've been always praying from a sense of lack and limitation or fear, instead of being those luminous beings. Unless of co-creating with Spirit the divine place that we want to live, the divine life that we have. He taught them how to pray. He said, pray this way, our Father who art in heaven. Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. There's no begging. There's no pleading. Someone in our teaching came up with steps of treatment, or steps of prayer. Some use the 5-step, some use the 3-step, some use the 7-step. There's a debate on which one is right. It's 5. A few weeks ago, Reverend Julie spoke of the 5th step as release. And I'm wondering why steps. You know, it's almost like baby steps. But I think that's exactly what it is. And it's almost to me like a bouncing ball that you have to follow if you're going to follow the steps. And to begin with, I think we have to do that in order to understand what true prayer is. That it's not begging or pleading or beseeching anything out there. It's recognizing that we have everything within us already to create the life that we want. I used to think that, the prayer, because I used to listen to Sue Rubin. I used to hear her treatments, and I used to try and follow them. And they were magnificent, and they are magnificent, and they last about 15 minutes. And she's brilliant. And I realized that I couldn't do it like her. She just does it the way she does it. I had to do it the way I did it. So I looked at somebody else and I tried to do it like they did, and I couldn't do it there. It's like we're bouncing it's karaoke. Let's use their words instead of our words. Let's use their ideas instead of our ideas. And that's not the way it works. We have to use our ideas. Reverend Julie spoke about the fifth step, which is release. And she says it's one of the most important parts of spiritual mind treatment is letting it go, letting it come to you. I like recognition and unification, the first two steps of treatment. To me, that's all we really need to do is determine who we really are. Remember who we really are. Recognizing that there's one power, one infinite intelligence throughout this universe, and I am one with that. I'm not part of it, I am one with. We remember who we really are. And when we do that, we have the wherewithal to create the life that we want and the life that we choose. We've had this power within us from the very beginning. This idea of prayer is not to impress God. God doesn't need to be impressed. It is to impress us, to impress a new idea within our own consciousness of what we really want. They're to raise our consciousness of knowing our oneness with God or spirit or universe. To know that every good with us already exists within us. Our whole life is a prayer. Our thought each moment is a prayer. What are you praying today? What was your prayer when you first woke up this morning? Thank you, God, or oh God. Because it depends on how you say it. It depends on what you want out of life. How are you feeling? What is your prayer right now? May 24th, 2020 has finally arrived. This is the day. Many of us have been living a sheltered life. And there are those that have worked for us throughout this city, throughout this country, throughout this world. They've worked for our pleasure, and they work to ensure that most of us get through this as untouched as possible. For the last couple of months, this church building has been empty, for the most part. The building has been closed, but Metro and this teaching and this center remains open. Remains open to a new awareness or a new thought or a new idea that's willing and able and ready to come in and expand. We have been, for the last few months, living in a world that frankly comes from our anticipation of it. I want to say that again. We have been, for the last few months, living in a world that frankly comes from our anticipation of it. We anticipate if it's going to be a good day. We anticipate if it's going to be a bad day. We anticipate how we're going to feel. We anticipate all these things, and we get to be right. Because whatever we choose it to be, and I'm using the word choose really carefully, whatever we choose it to be, we seem to have. We seem to attract into our life. This whole idea of COVID-19 is not a world that I want. It's not a world that I've desired. But it's a world that I choose it to be. However I am seeing it in this moment. So I can choose it to be really, really an annoying time, or I can choose it to do things, to create things, to finish up old projects that I've had waiting around. I know there's only so much Netflix somebody can watch. But there's other things that we can do. There's all those old things. There's the old poems that I've written. There's those old stories that I've written. That book that I've wanted to create. But the only way we can do that is to have time to do it. And we have time to do this right now. Many of us. This is a world in which I constantly choose Not necessarily the outcome as I see it, because sometimes my eyes become jaded and judgmental. So it's never the outcome, it's always the income. How I choose to see life, how I choose to see my life. And my choice today is for me the perfect possibility of anything that I choose to see or hear or touch, feel or let into my life. We talked a little bit, or somebody mentioned a little bit about political today. There's a lot of political intrigue going on in the world today. Fearful words spoken in fear that are spoken loudly and heard clearly by fearful people. And yet at the same time there are kind words, sometimes spoken softly but very audibly, clear and passionate to those that choose to hear that. It's our choice in which we want to hear. It's our choice in which we want to go, which way we want to go. To the fear side or to the peaceful side. I've heard from many sources, some religious, some spiritual, some political, that the world's going to hell in a handbasket. I see the opposite. First of all, I don't believe in hell. And I have no idea what a handbasket is doing in hell anyway. But I believe that humanity right now is crying out for connection. I believe fully and wholly and completely in the laws of cause and effect. And I do believe in the law of reciprocal action. I believe that we have a choice to make each day, and sometimes that choice is one of magnificence. Other days that choice is one of seemingly survival. But nevertheless, whatever choice it is, they are choices. Someday our choices don't even feel like choices. It's like, God, if I've got to make one more choice, I'm going to die. And that's still a choice. We're still choosing how we live our life. These last few months have been remarkable. It was months of seeing humanity not only crying out for connection, but for humankind to stand up and open their hearts to others and make compassion not a buzzword, but an integral part of living their lives. I believe this 2020, this is the year. This is the year that humanity is preparing itself for an evolutionary shift upwards. Barbara Marx Hubbard wrote that crises precede transformation. Evolution creates a radical newness. And sometimes it becomes really, really tough to take that in because it's so new. And yet that's what we want. We want something brand new. We're tired of this old, that same old, same old. But in order to have something new, we've got to accept something new. We've got to accept something radically new, perhaps, in our lives. Once there was no earth, then earth appeared. Once there was no life, then life appeared. We are seeing an evolution happening before our very eyes. The philosopher Desjardins talked about a noosphere, a mind sphere and a layer of this earth, where thought precedes anything. And we might call that the race consciousness. And we can change race consciousness. And all it takes is one person to begin it. Why not you? We are about to connect center to center and heart to heart. Empathy is rising. Spirituality is growing. Healings are happening. The internet is connecting us everywhere. There are innovations in health, in education, in energy, in conscious business practices, and environmental awarenesses that are accelerating and beginning to connect. They're beginning to connect through a whole system. And this whole system breakthrough comes out of a whole system breakdown. But we can have all this stuff, we can have all this technical energy, this technical awareness, but we need one more thing. We need to know who we really are. And we really need to know that we're worthy of this new life that's coming in. That we welcome it with open arms, with open hearts, with open minds. We really understand who we are and that we make a difference in this world. I want to close today with a poem by Michael Putnam and Catherine Wilson. There was a time long ago, or so it seems now, before I became who I am, when I poured myself as a small empty cup and yearned to be filled to the brim. I searched for the answers so much of my life from teachers I placed high above me, trying on wings that simply weren't mine in hopes that the winds would come lift me. I poured through the books, through new and old. The rituals came and they went. The television's power in time left me cold. None of it seemed heaven sent. The answer lies within, my friend. The answer lies within. The mountains can't hold it. The teachers don't own it. The answer lies within. One morning, at odds with the world I had made, I stood at my mirror in tears. But I suddenly saw that face that stared back, held no trace of the hunger or fears. I saw at that moment so brilliantly clear all the wisdom my life had collected. The student was ready, the teacher was here in a way I had never expected. We balance our lives between ignorance and bliss. With a prayer, divine wisdom will find us. And yet our greatest sin is our fear to exist in the knowledge that God lives within us. So I don't need the mountains, the books, or the wings, and I don't need someone to save me. Now all I need is to claim all the answers within and to follow them clearly and bravely. The answer lies within, my friend. The answer lies within. And so it is.